When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
The Two-Footed Podcast is brought to you by EPLindex.com and our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider. A virtual privacy network allows you to go online, change your location, access things you're geo-blocked from, while keeping your data safe. So, as an example, if you are a UK expat and want access to BBC iPlayer to watch Match of the Day, or ITV Hub, or all four, will you get that message that says this content is not available in your location? A Liberty Shield VPN gets you around that block, allows you to watch whatever you want on those services, while also keeping your data safe. And it goes further than that. It allows you to open up Netflix's entire library by just changing your IP address. Liberty Shield is the #1 rated VPN provider on Trustpilot with 5-star ratings across the board. So go to libertyshield.com right now, use the code EPL25 and get either the hardware package or the software package. The hardware package is a router that you plug into your existing router, and any item you want to change the IP address on, be it your phone or your television, you connect that to the new Liberty Shield router. All other items can remain connected to your existing router. There's also a software package, which is instantly downloadable to your device, and you can get using straight away. Again, libertyshield.com, EPL25 for 25% off at checkout. We're also brought to you by Home of Hopcroft, a giftware and homeware company located in Scotland but shipping worldwide. Check out homeofhopcroft.co.uk and do check out the EPL Index and Anfield Index shops, which you'll find on Etsy. Use the codes EPL10 or RED10 for 10% off at checkout. And lastly, do remember to check out A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. That podcast is on this feed before every Premier League match week. And then the EPL Roundtable, hosted by Kevin DeVries, on its own EPL Roundtable feed. So just search EPL Roundtable in your podcast device. And that's out after every match week. Now, on with the show. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Monday. It is the 22nd of July, and it is absolutely teeming rain. It's been October, November for about 14 months now, barring the really cold months where we had December, January, February. Other than that, we've just had October, November since about last May. I think we've had 2 runs in that time where we've had 6 days without rain in a row, and that's it. 2. And no more than that. Tremendous stuff. Tremendous stuff. It may have missed your attention, but currently ongoing, if you've been enjoying the international football of this summer, is the European Under-19 Championships, which are taking place in Northern Ireland. And we're still in the group stage. The last games of the group stage are taking place today. So I thought we'd just do a quick catch-up and see where those stand. So in Group A, it was Italy, Ukraine, Norway, and Northern Ireland. Italy beat Norway. Northern Ireland and Ukraine played out a 0-0 draw. Then Norway and Ukraine played a 0-0 draw. Italy beat Northern Ireland 3-0. Norway beat Northern Ireland 2-0. And then Ukraine beat Italy 3-2 in the final game. So Italy go through as group winners with 6 points. Ukraine finished second with 5 points. And Norway are out. Northern Ireland also out, unfortunately for them, bottom of their group. In Group B, which is where we do have games left today, Spain beat Denmark 2-1. France beat Turkey 2-1. France beat Denmark 4-2. Spain and Turkey played out a 1-1 draw. Tonight at 8 p.m. UK time, obviously, because these games have been played in the United Kingdom, not been played in Ireland, let's be honest, but for political reasons, they still have been played in the United Kingdom. Turkey versus Denmark, Spain versus France. So that Spain-France game, potentially quite a good one. There's two very good teams there. In all likelihood, both of those teams going through. A draw is enough to put both through. Turkey would need a win and a Spain loss by a couple of goals to get through themselves. We will then get semi-finals and final. Only 8 teams in this competition. In terms of the squads, thought we'd go through those, have a quick look, see if there's anybody that pops up for us. So the Italians, they're being managed by Bernardo Corradi. You might remember him. He played briefly for Manchester City. During a long career, he also played for Cagliari, Chievo, Lazio, Valencia, Parma, Regina, and Udinese, and won 13 caps for the Italian national team. There are some interesting players in this squad. Luca Lipani is a very, very interesting midfielder that Sassuolo nicked off of Genoa. He was very highly regarded coming through at Genoa, and for some reason they decided to sell him. Mattia Manini is in the squad as well, and he has been hailed by The Guardian, amongst others, as one of the best players in his age group, which is the 2006 Spurs. Small, diminutive midfielder, but very, very comfortable on the ball. Kevin Zaroli of AC Milan is in the squad. He's big and rangy, powerful player, originally a centre-back, but he can play now as a box-to-box midfielder and be very, very dominant. And I'd expect that he sees plenty of action for Milan in the season ahead. He played 4 games last season. His brother, I believe, was also in the Milan academy, but has aged out, and I don't know where he's gone now. Simone Profondi, who is probably the most highly regarded young Italian player. Now, he's from the Udinese academy, moved to Luzon, who's owned by Ineos, on loan with an option to buy. I assume they will take that up. Very, very talented player. Very, very talented player. Like a Kubo's who he reminds me of. Like, he's a wide player, can play as a 10. He's small, he's undersized, and he's 5'5". Can be a little bit lightweight. Doesn't have exceptional speed, but does have a decent enough burst. He's a very good player, one to keep an eye on. For Northern Ireland, Pierce Charles is the goalkeeper. He's the younger brother of Shay Charles, who's at Southampton. Mason Munn is in the squad of Rangers. Kieran Morrison of Liverpool, who was in the United Academy before that. He's quite highly regarded. And Braden Graham of Everton, another one to keep an eye on. In terms of the Norway squad, Travis Hernes of Newcastle is one to keep an eye on. I think he's got an opportunity maybe in the season ahead to get some squad minutes for the Toon. Although, given they're not in Europe, maybe not. But he came through the Shrewsbury Academy and has a decent amount of talent, so he could be a player that will make a name for himself. Not familiar with anyone else in that squad. From Ukraine, there are 2 English-based players, Christian Shevchenko, who's at Watford, and Timur Titarov, who's at Sunderland. But I'm not familiar with anyone in the squad. I don't think. No. Oh, Ponomarenko, the striker, got some run with Kiev, but haven't seen a whole lot. I think one game maybe. Denmark, it's all homegrown bar 2 players, Andreas Dittmer, the goalkeeper from Utrecht, and Mads Nebo from Mafra in Portugal. There's also Vilas Nielsen, who's with Bodo Glimt in Norway, but entirely homegrown. Oscar Bolson has been linked with a couple of English clubs over the years. He's been quite highly regarded since he was like 15, 16, so might be one to keep an eye on. Lucas Høgsberg is at Nordland, and he's one that's been linked with moves to, I think, Ajax and Borussia Mönchengladbach, maybe? Somebody like that. Oscar Schwartz is another one that's been linked with moves away, so we'll see if anything comes of that. France, always well worth keeping an eye on the French because there's always talent. This is a ridiculous run that they're on, producing very, very talented young players. So Ilyas Zidane, who is the youngest of the Zidane brothers, sons of Zizou, is a 6'5" centre-back who is with Real Betis as of this past summer. Was in the Real Madrid academy, but decided to move to Betis. He's one that might be worth keeping an eye on. Kumbede, the right back who took over when Malo Gusto left Lyon and went to Chelsea. He's the kind of the next big thing at a Lyon in terms of a fullback. One to keep an eye on. And I suppose, Lucas McCall has been talked about for a while in Monaco, but Eli Junior Gropey is the one that I think has the best chance from this squad of really becoming a star. He's a versatile attacker, can play both sides, through the middle, as a striker, off the striker. Been with Laurent his whole career since he was like 7, I think. And this past season sort of established himself as a first-choice player. Now, they've gotten relegated, so high probability that he gets sold this summer. Wouldn't surprise me if he ends up at Bournemouth, because obviously Bournemouth are owned by the same group. Wouldn't surprise me if he moves to Bournemouth. I think he's got a chance to be a star. In the Spanish squad, you've got Fran Gonzalez of Real Madrid, who's highly rated. Yakuba Roman of Real Madrid. Gasiurowski of Valencia is the one that stands out to me in terms of the defensive group, though. I think he's going to be really, really good. In midfield, Paul Fortuny, Christian Pereira of Real Madrid, Rayan Belad of Atletico Madrid, but I think the star names here, Asana Diao, the winger from Real Betis, does look a big-time talent. Lightning quick, great 1v1. I think he's one to keep an eye on. And Igor Bravo, who was at Bayer Leverkusen. He's back at Bayer Leverkusen. He'd been in the Barcelona academy, went to Leverkusen. Real took him on a 2-year loan with an obligation to buy or an option to buy. And for whatever reason, they decided not to keep him. I don't know how he's performed for the Real Madrid B team, but he is back now to Bayer Leverkusen, but still only 19 and very highly regarded. In the Turkish squad, the standout players for me, Amir Bars, the midfielder from PSV, Dutch-born, like a lot of Turkish players. There's obviously great Turkish diaspora in the Netherlands and in Belgium and in the lowland countries. But he is a very, very talented player. He's one to definitely keep an eye on. I'd be surprised if he hasn't been capped by the senior team within the next sort of year or so. Berke Yilmaz looks like a real star at left back. He's at Freiburg. A lot of clubs are now starting to circle on him, but he looks like one that could be very, very good. Itzik Farrell of Frosinone, didn't see much of him last season, but he comes with a big reputation. He's had a roundabout career in that I think he was born in Sweden. Then he spent time in Portugal with Benfica, went to Fenerbahce, got loaned back, I think, to Hammarby in Sweden, and then got sold to Frosinone in like January or something. But yeah, he's one that's highly thought of. And that is it. That is our squad. So as things stand, you'd probably suggest that the Italians look a pretty good bet to advance, depending on how this breaks out. So assuming France and Spain both go through, we'll say France go through as group winners. They would then play Ukraine. You would expect France to beat Ukraine. And then it would be Italy versus Spain, and that could be a really good game. Those games are both on the 25th, and then the final is the 28th. So if you are around Belfast or close to Belfast, I would suggest going and watching these games being played. The semis and final at Windsor Park. There's a FIFA Under-20 World Cup playoff game, which will be between Norway and likely Turkey. The teams that qualify for the knockout phases also automatically qualify for next year's FIFA Under-20 World Cup. And the two teams that finish in third, they play off for the final spot, the fifth spot, to go to that. So that game will be Norway potentially versus Turkey. Could be Denmark, but let's say Turkey. And that game is in Seaview on the 25th as well. It's the home of Crusaders. If you're not from Belfast, you might not know that. But yeah, so go and check some of those games out if you're in the area, or find them to watch, because there's been some decent games so far. There has been some decent games for the France-Turkey game was really good. The Ukraine-Italy game was good. So do make sure you go and watch some of these games, because they're well worth your while. Right, I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have a look at one of our newly promoted teams. See you in a sec. Right, welcome back. So, returning to the Premier League, but with a little look towards our friends and sponsor, Sky Bet, and the Championship, we've got Southampton, who are coming back up after a one-season absence. Russell Martin is not a manager that I'm overly fond of. I think he's a little bit overrated, but he has done a very, very good job at Southampton since taking over 12 months ago. Didn't feel he did a particularly good job with Swansea, but he had done well at MK Dons. So Swansea's an awkward place to go, I think. And when I look at, Cooper did really well there, but Potter struggled there and then went to Brighton, did really well. Cooper did really well there, went to Forest, did really well. Martin, if you look at the three managers in a row, it does appear like Swansea pick managers really well, but maybe some of the financial issues, some of the noise around the club just doesn't play all that well, and doesn't give managers the right sort of base to build off. And I'd be really curious to see how Luke Williams gets on this season. He obviously took over in January, replacing Michael Duff, who had to be fired because it had just been such a disaster under his watch. I'd be really interested to see how Williams does, because he'd done so well with Notts County that Swansea's an interesting chance for him. It's a mid-table club, but it does have playoff potential. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, back to Southampton. So last summer, they obviously come off a year where they've been managed by Ralph Hasenhüttl, Nathan Jones in what was a comedic spell. Nathan Jones now obviously at Charlton, Hasenhüttl at Wolfsburg, and then Ruben Selles, who's now at Reading, managed from February on. And there was some thought that he might get the job permanently, but in the summer they made the decision to go and get Russell Martin. Transfer-wise, they loaned out a lot of players, including Coletta Carr, Thierry Small, Roman Perot, Lianco, Bella Kotchup, Oniachu, Carlos Alcaraz. He went in January, actually, to be fair. They sold Ibrahima Diallo, Salisu, Livramento, Ward-Prowse, Lavia, Tella, Gineppo, It's a lot of players to go. They brought in Derek Abu, Ryan Manning, Shea Charles, Joe Lumley, Ross Stewart, Zach Aw, and on loan, Flynn Downs, Ryan Fraser, Mason Holgate, who didn't work out and was binned off in the January window, and Taylor Howard-Bellis. And then in the January window, they brought in Joe Rothwell, who's now gone on loan to Leeds, and David Brooks, and we'll see what happens with him this summer. Howard-Bellis and Downs obviously did really well, and Southampton have made the decision to keep them now, but we'll come back to that. They began the season with the win away to Sheffield Wednesday. Then they drew 4-4 with Norwich in what was an absolutely mental game. They beat Plymouth 2-1 away and beat QPR 2-1 home. So 3 wins and a draw, but they looked so open defensively. And then they went to Sunderland and got beaten 5-0. And then Leicester went to St Mary's and beat them 4-1. And you just thought, this is going to be a disaster. They can't defend. They lost at home to Ipswich and lost away to Middlesbrough. And then they turned things around. And after those 4 defeats, which brings us to the 23rd of September, they don't lose again until the 13th of February, which is a really impressive run in the Championship. They beat Leeds away. So beat Leeds at home, beat Stoke away, drew at home with Rotherham, which is a bad result. Won away to Hull, drew away to Preston, beat Birmingham at home, beat Millwall away, beat West Brom at home. So this is a really good run of results, barring that Rotherham result. But you can excuse that when you pick up a win away to Hull, a win at home to Leeds. They draw away to Huddersfield, again, that's a bad result. They beat Bristol at home, they beat Cardiff at home, they draw away to Watford and Coventry. They're 2 decent results. Hammer Blackburn at home, beat QPR away, hammer Swansea at home, beat Plymouth at home, go to Norwich and get a draw, hammer Sheffield Wednesday at home, beat Swansea away, Rotherham away, then beat Huddersfield at home. Then they lose 3-1 at Bristol. They bounce back by beating West Brom 2-0 in West Brom. They lose back-to-back home games, and this probably is what screwed them of automatic promotion. They lose at home to Hull, lose at home to Millwall. Those are games that they would have hoped to win, especially that Millwall one. They go to Birmingham and win. They beat Sunderland at home. They draw at home at Middlesbrough. They lose away to Ipswich. They draw away to Blackburn. They beat Coventry at home, beat Watford at home, and beat Preston at home. Then they lose at Cardiff, get smoked away by Leicester 5-0. Lose at home to Stoke, which is a bad result. And then they beat Leeds 2-1 on the final day. And what that meant was they finished 4th in the league. The momentum of losing those back-to-back games really hurt them because they had moved in to 2nd place after match week 30. Then they lose to Bristol, but then they beat Southampton. And if they'd won those back-to-back games, they would have moved back to 2nd. Instead, they lose both, they go to 4th, and they stayed 4th the rest of the way. In the playoffs, they drew West Brom. They drew 0-0 at West Brom, and then won 3-1 at home. Will Smallball and 2 Adam Armstrong goals. And then in the playoff finals, Armstrong gets the only goal of the game as they beat Leeds in what was an upset. Leeds were heavily favoured. In the FA Cup, they'd gotten to the 5th round. They had beaten Walsall, drawn away to Watford, and then beaten them home in the replay. And then they lost at Anfield to Liverpool, to what was largely a kid team. But Southampton were not really in much of a mood to go much further in the competition. Focus had to be on the league. In the EFL Cup, they went out to Gillingham on the opening day. When we start to look at their squad, Gavin Basunu is a really good young goalkeeper, but he did suffer a very serious injury last season. He suffered a ruptured Achilles in April, and he is going to be out probably until 2025. So that's something they're going to need to look at. He played 41 of their games last year. Alex McCarthy played the other 5. Now, McCarthy is a very experienced goalkeeper. He's still only 34, so he's not like he's ancient. He's been at Saints for 8 years. He's a good goalkeeper. He's just signed a new 2-year extension, so it does keep him there. But I do think they might want to go and look for potentially like a loan for a goalkeeper to come in while they're waiting for Basunu, and then while they ease Basunu back in. I wonder if they could look at Rushworth, Carl Rushworth from Brighton. Maybe that's a loan that would work for everybody. I think Brighton are looking to get him some Premier League experience. He's had a loan at Worthing, a good loan at Walsall, a loan at Lincoln, and a loan at Swansea last year. So I think that the natural step for him now is to get a Premier League move. And I wonder if that's the type of loan that might work for everybody. You've got Kyle Walker-Peters, who's a really good right back. You've got Harwood Bellis, who's a really good centre-back. I'm not overly enthused by the rest. Not a big fan of Ryan Manning. I think he's decent, but I'm not a big fan. And I don't really look at the rest of your centre-backs. Like Jan Bednarik played 39 starts last season. I wouldn't be a big fan of him at this point of his career. So I do think they could look at adding there. In midfield, they've got a solid enough group with the likes of Will Smallbone, the likes of Flynn Downs. I think we'll see a lot more of Shea Charles next season. 15 starts, 32 appearances. I think we'll see a lot more of him. They are bringing back Carlos Alcaraz, who spent the second half of last season on loan at Juve. I think he's excellent. I think he's got the potential to be a very, very, very good Premier League footballer. So I could definitely see them getting him back integrated into the team. In attack, I mean, Joe Aribo's other midfield option, who played quite a bit for them last season, 16 starts, 19 appearances off the bench, so 35 in total. They've lost Che Adams. He's gone to Torino, I believe, on a free. You've got Seiko Mara, who's very talented. You've got Sulemana, who's very talented. You've got Edozie, who's very talented, but none of them are really reliable at the Premier League level, or at least yet. Your primary goal scorer is Adam Armstrong. Now that Che Adams is gone, it was those two. They got 37 league goals between them last year. Adam Armstrong has never performed well in the Premier League, and that's the concern with him. Like the last time he was in the Championship with Blackburn, he scored 16 and 46 and then 28 and 40, moved to Southampton and scored 4 goals in 53 Premier League appearances over 2 seasons. That's the concern. Is there enough goals in this team coming up? Like last season in the league, Armstrong played 44 games, so pretty much ever present, and was a sub in the other 2. Walker-Peters played 43. Howard Bellis played 40. Basunu played 41. He's now going to miss at least half the season. Bednarik 39. Armstrong 33. These are just starts, by the way. Adams 25 and 15 off the bench. Smallbone, I think I said 35, but another 8 off the bench. And we don't know if he's Premier League calibre either. Like, Will Smallbone hasn't shown that he's Premier League calibre. In the 3 seasons prior to the relegation, he was a bit part player and then went on loan. Sorry, the 4 seasons, he was a bit part player for 3 years and then went on loan to Stoke. So we don't know if he's going to be Premier League quality. We don't know about a lot of these players. We don't know about Flynn Downs. He didn't exactly light it up with West Ham. So I know he had a very good year last year, and maybe this time around he'll be a bit more comfortable. We know he's a player that Russell Martin likes. He brought him to Swansea, didn't he? I'm curious to see how that goes with him. I think he's a good player, but again, can he play in the Premier League? There's a lot of these players, that's the question mark over. Now, they will get a bunch of the players that were out on loan back. And if they want to keep them, they can. Like I said, they can. There's absolutely no reason not to push Alcaraz back in to them starting midfield. You could bring Bella Kotchap in as a starter. They've sold Colette de Car, they've sold Perron, they've sold Lianco, but they've still got other good options there. Thus far this summer, they've been pretty active. If we look at their business, they have brought in Howard Bellis, 20 million. Flynn Downs, 15 million. Sugawara, the right back from Alkmaar, for, I think they paid 5 million for him. Now, he's not as good as Walker Peters, so I'm curious to see if that means Walker Peters is going to leave. Nathan Wood from Swansea, very talented. And Ronnie Edwards from Peterborough, I think, has got a big chance to be a starting calibre player in the Premier League, just not yet. Charlie Taylor comes in as a backup left back to Manning. That makes sense. And they signed the empty shirt that is Adam Lallana. Stuart Armstrong is gone on a free. Che Adams is gone on a free. That's two players that were vital to them last year. I think they've got a lot to do, if I'm being honest. I really do think they've got a lot to do. Like, Joe Lumley is completely unproven at the Premier League level. Matthias Liz has been at the club for a bunch of years. He's never played for them. I just don't see that he's ready to contribute. So you've got McCarthy as the only goalkeeper going into the year. So I think you need to add a goalkeeper. Assuming the squad stays, assuming no departures, right back, you've got Walker Peters, you've got Sugawara, and you've got James Bree. Frankly, James Bree is not a Premier League calibre player, so you'd want to move him on. At that left back, you've got Manning and you've got Charlie Taylor. That's fine. You've also got Juan Larios, who came through the City Academy. I think he actually came through the Barcelona Academy, and City lifted him. And he joined Southampton in the summer of 2022. Him and Edozie came together. City also bought Lavia and Basunu from City Southampton also brought Lavia and Basunu from City that year. So they spent a lot of money on the City Academy because Joe Shields just didn't know anybody else. I think they're going to be good at left back. I think they'll be fine there. Larius now at 20, potentially ready to play more Premier League minutes. Centre back, then you've got Howard Bellis and Bella Kotchap are both only 22. And I'd be really interested in what they'd look like as a pairing, because I think Bella Kotchap's pace, his front-footed nature would play well with Howard Bellis, and then Edwards as depth behind them along with Nathan Wood and Bednarak. And I think that's not a bad group. You might want one more starter. Like, you might just not want to throw Bella Kotchap in as a starter, given he didn't have a great year last year on loan at PSV. So maybe they'll look for a starting centre-back, but that's not a bad group. As long as Bednarak is not starting, I don't think he should be starting at this point. Not in the Premier League. So, look, address the goalkeeper, and maybe the defence is okay. Midfield, though, does need work. I think you need at least one more proven quality Premier League player here. Alcaraz, I really like. There's question marks around all the rest. Big question marks around some of them. But, if Dan's the small ball, I'm going to play a lot. I still think you need one more, and Shea Charles, and that's your group of 5. And then Joe Aribo can be your 6th. And that's your group of midfielders. And then in attack, this is where work is really needed. Like, I think Sekou Mara is a really good player, but he's still only 21. He's still very unproven. The same thing with Sulemana, 22, very unproven. Edozie, 21, unproven. I'd like to see them go and get someone that's a proven goal scorer in wide areas. And I think they need to bring in a number 9 as well. I think that's got to be addressed, because you can't just go into the season with Adam Armstrong as your only goal scorer. Now, Onuachu comes back. He didn't play well in the Premier League the last time he was there. How did he do on loan? Don't think he had a great season on loan, did he? Oh, to be fair, he did have a pretty good run on loan. 15 goals in 21 games in the Turkish league. But he scored 11. He scored 0 in 11 games in the last time he was in the Premier League. Maybe he just needed time to adapt. We'll see. But I'd still look to bring in a striker. So I would say goalkeeper, midfield, winger, striker are the areas for them to look at. Goalkeeper only needs to be a short-term thing. Like I said, Carl Rushford would be the one to go with. I think he makes sense for everybody. Midfield, I mean, I think Shea Charles has a real chance to be a good starting quality defensive midfielder. I really like Alcaraz, but I'd like one more, because I think he'll try and play Downs and Smallbone as much as possible. I think he just needs one more, bit more experience, maybe someone that bit older. Who's on the outs of the top club that could potentially make sense for them? Now, by top club, I mean Premier League club, and maybe one of the relegated teams. Maybe you look at someone like Sander Berge, maybe. Vinny Sousa. Vinny Sousa could make sense. He's a ready-made defensive midfielder, just slots in, protects your defence. You play whichever two of Alcaraz, Smallbone, and Downs. That might be pretty good. Winger. Could you? I mean, you've got really talented wingers, but could you get in the mix for Nonto? I know he's a young winger. He's not a proven goal scorer. Could you go in for Somerville? If you could get Somerville, he'd fit really well. And then a striker. I mean, it's Ben Brereton Diaz. I could see him working well under Russell Martin. That might be the type of group to go for. Somerville, Brereton Diaz, maybe you can get him on loan. Rushworth on loan. And Vinny Sousa. Probably about 50 million worth to spend, but thus far, you haven't spent a huge amount. And you want to make sure you back your manager. You don't want to end up in a situation like Sheffield United did last year. I'm excited to see them back up. I've always liked Southampton. I think they're a good club. There's always an ethos to play good football. There's always an ethos to promote youngsters and be, a positive influence on the Premier League. So we'll see. But yeah, they've still got a lot of work to do. Right, back after the break. Right, welcome back. So, Leeds have signed Jayden Bogle from Sheffield United on a 4-year contract for a significant undisclosed fee. Now, obviously, Archie Gray had started right back for them last year. Archie's now gone to Spurs, where he's been playing centre-back in pre-season, looking really good. And Leeds have gone out and they've brought in Bogle to replace him. I quite like Jayden Bogle. He was at Swindon and Reading's academies. Then he went to Derby and he broke through there and was doing really well. And then obviously their financial problems hit and they had to start selling players left and right. And he's one of the first ones to go, and he went to Sheffield United, a double deal with Max Lowe the first time they were up. They had a tough enough time, I think, because they were largely garbage for quite a lot of the time he was there. But I think he's a good player, and he's still young. He's only 23. So I think he can do pretty well for Leeds. Gareth Barry, who holds the record for the most Premier League appearances, has signed up to play village football in mid-Sussex. Hurst Pierpoint, who play in the second tier of the Mid-Sussex Football League, which is the 11th tier of the English football pyramid, he is signed to play for that. He is 43 years of age. That is fantastic. He came along to training and loved us. I don't think he's going to be around every week, but he's a great sign. He's going to raise our profile. That's fantastic. Why not? If he loves playing, why not keep playing? That's tremendous stuff. Not tremendous stuff is Liverpool walking off the pitch twice during an under-18 game due to alleged racial abuse from one of their opposition. They're playing a game against Eintracht Frankfurt in the Bundesliga Cup Youth Tournament, and it's not good. So, firstly, they walked off during a game against Hoffenheim, and then they played Frankfurt, and the same player was abused twice, and the match was abandoned. And Liverpool have called for an investigation into this. The Frankfurt sporting director, Timo Hardung, has spoken to the accused player from his club and says the incident was a misunderstanding. We can rule out racism. It was a linguistic issue. I'm not sure I can believe that. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg has joined Marseille. It's a deal worth about 17 million, and he is having a medical as we speak. The dreadful set of lads that is Joey Barton has been charged with making malicious communications. The former Manchester City, Burnley and Rangers flop is due to appear in court later this month. On his Twitter account, he said he'd been charged over tweets relating to broadcaster and multiple league winner medal Eniola Aluku, who's had a much better footballing career than Joey Barton. Cheshire Police said the messages concerned here were sent between the 1st and 18th of January. In a statement, a police spokesman said a man from Widnes had been summoned to court to face charges of malicious communications. Joey Barton is already 150 grand, I think he owes somebody else for abusive tweets that he sent, and has done the best to just completely tank any possibility he ever had of another job in football. And frankly, nobody should ever hire Joey Barton to do anything because he's a prick. Let's see. Manchester United had a helping hand from Rio Ferdinand in persuading Lenny Yoro to join the club. Yoro's made some funny statements calling United the biggest club in the world and saying it's a dream to play there, when everybody knows that the reason he's there is because George Mendes and his family pushed him there, and Leo told him, if you don't go there, you're going to sit in our reserves all year or you're not going to play at all. And he was forced into the move. So, there is that. Aston Villa have completed the signing of Amadou Onana from Everton for 50 million. It's a nice profit for Everton. There's also a sell-on clause and I think some add-ons there. I think it's a significant upgrade on Douglas Luiz. In the long run, I really like the idea of an Onana Kamara double pivot. I think that's going to be great. I like the Maatsen signing. Obviously, one of the days last week, I did my transfer window ratings thus far, and I think I gave Villa a B. You can now change that to an A because it's done, and the Jadon Philligan deal is done as well. I think they've had a great summer so far. Now let's see. What else do we have? Cesc was named the head coach of Como. We've been over that. Brighton have rejected an £8 million bid from Napoli for Billy Gilmore. I wonder how much Brighton paid for him. Was it like 12 million? I'd imagine they'd want to make a bit of profit on him. Brighton with an undisclosed fee. I wouldn't be against selling him if I was Brighton. I think he's a decent player. I don't think he's ever going to be what they hoped he would be. So I think it would make sense to move him on. But we'll see. What have we got here? 10 players to watch out for at the Paris Olympics. Bill Foley of Bournemouth has said it should be a firm no to overseas Premier League games. I think he's spot on there, to be honest. Right, 10 players to watch out for. Julian Alvarez, of course. Martha, maybe the greatest female player of all time. Lacazette, not so much. Bon Matthew of Spain, she is tremendous, so yes. Hakimi, obviously. Wendy Renard of France, definitely. Fermin Lopez is a very interesting player, for sure. Linda Caicedo of Colombia. She's 19 and recognized as one of the best prospects in world football and already plays for Real Madrid. Naby Keita. Braba Bandi of Zambia is the second most expensive women's footballer. She plays for Orlando Pride, who's previously playing in China. And that's our list. Right, let's get into the gossip. We've got 3 days worth. So, Manchester United are willing to let Anthony depart on loan, but only if a club are prepared to cover his 70,000 a week wages. I'd imagine he's on significantly more than that personally. Barcelona have submitted plans for a 6-year contract to the representatives of Dani Olmo. Crystal Palace are ready to bid 30 million for Emile Smith-Rowe. Apparently they're also after Ismail Assar. That would be interesting. He's a decent player. Didn't seem to love his time at Marseille, so coming back to England potentially, but I think Smith-Rowe will be an incredibly good get. Sergi Roberto is working on a move to the Premier League after his contract at Barcelona expired. At this point, I don't think any Premier League club should really be considering him. France have recalled Chelsea have recalled Leslie Ogochukwu from France's Olympic squad amid plans to loan him out this season. That seems highly unfair on a young player. Meanwhile, Chelsea want to sign a new goalkeeper to rival Robert Sanchez for the number one spot. We'll all remember that Robert Sanchez, of course, lost his spot in the team last year and wasn't very good beforehand. Liverpool are prepared to sell Cleveland Callagher if they receive a suitable offer. Everybody's known that for months. Richarlison is open to move to the Saudi Pro League, but Spurs will demand 60 million, which is what they paid for him. Leicester have made an improved £21 million bid for Matthias Sula and hope to wrap up the deal for him next week. I don't think 21 million is going to get him, but we'll see. Newcastle are hoping to beat West Ham and Juventus to the signing of Jean-Claude Todibo. He'd be a great fit next to Botman when Botman comes back. Chelsea have not given up in the pursuit of Victor Osimhen. It's clear he wants to go to PSG, but if Chelsea want to overpay for him, they might be able to get him. Crystal Palace, Ismail Assar. Chelsea have contacted Newcastle. Chelsea have received contact from Newcastle about Noni Mudeki. That's a good move for Noni. I think he'd fit really well there. Liverpool and Newcastle are among the clubs interested in Dean Huijsen, but the valuation by Juventus of 25 million could be a stumbling block. I doubt it. Brighton are looking to advance negotiations over a deal for Rajan Gruda from Mainz. Brighton don't need any more wingers. Now, he's really good. And I suppose if you've got the chance to get him, you go and get him and then figure it out afterwards. But they're loaded with wingers in and around his age. Sheffield United midfielder Gustavo Hammer has a relegation release clause, and the Brazilian is on the radar of several Premier League clubs. I could see it. He is, of course, a Netherlands underage player because he was adopted and raised in the Netherlands. But yeah, I suppose he is Brazilian born. But yeah, I suppose it makes sense that a couple of Premier League teams would want him. I think he had a pretty decent season for Sheffield United last season, surrounded by dross. United are open to selling Mason Mount. I doubt it. Adrian Rabiot was close to signing for Manchester United. That would be funny. Everton will offer Jared Brantford a much improved contract to compensate him for missing out on a big money move to United. Arsenal are set to sign Tommy Setford from Ajax. Arsenal have stepped up their efforts to sign Ricardo Calafiori. Okay. West Ham have had a verbal agreement to sign N'Golo Kante. I think there was a verbal agreement with his agent, but Al Ittihad have said no. Aston Villa are prepared to sell Luca Digne. That makes sense. Manuel Ugarte has negotiated personal terms with Manchester United. United have set a £30 million asking price on Scott McTominay. I think he's got a year left of his contract. Still seems high. Denmark midfielder Jesper Lindstrøm is set for a season-long loan to Everton from Napoli. Now, he had a really bad season with Napoli last year, but he is a talented player, and I could see him doing quite well in the Premier League, especially under a manager like Sean Dyche. He had a really good time at Frankfurt, 2 really good years, joining them from Brøndby, so I could definitely see him doing well for Everton. Molly disagrees. She doesn't like him at all. Brighton have held talks with Inter Miami over a deal for Diego Gomez. He's a really interesting midfielder. Birmingham have set their sights on Luke Harris of Fulham. I assume that would be a loan. Lille are looking to sign Naif Agard as a replacement for Lenny Yoro. Would make sense. Can they afford him, though? I mean, I'd imagine West Ham would want decent money. Chelsea are set to send Andre Santos on loan to Strasbourg again after the end of their USA tour. Did I read Liam Rossinier is set to become the Strasbourg manager? I think I saw that over the weekend. Everton are going to try and sign Calvin Phillips. I think that's a deal that would make sense, to be fair. West Ham are interested in a move for Fikayo Tomori. Arsenal are close to agreeing a deal with Bologna for Calafiori. Manchester United are hopeful of beating Bayern Munich and RB Leipzig to the signing of Xavi Simons. I don't see that one. Al Ittihad have approached City over a move for Ederson. He seems really wanting to go to the Middle East. This is the second club now that have shown strong interest in him. Aston Villa are willing to sell Matty Cash this summer. If that's true, they need to buy another defender. But it wouldn't surprise me if it was true. Kevin De Bruyne has not agreed terms with Al Ittihad despite reports. Manchester United have decided not to trigger the option to sign Sofiane Amrabat on a permanent deal, but apparently they do want to keep him. But they don't want to pay the 20 million that they agreed as an option last summer. Arsenal have made a fresh bid worth up to 300,000 for Dan Bentley. Moussa Diaby is set to go to Al Ittihad this week. Villa will look to replace Diaby with João Felix. That could be interesting. I'd be very interested to see how that would work, because I think he would fit really well into that team. Tottenham want to replace Ollie Skip with a homegrown midfielder if they allow him to leave the club. Uli Hoeneß has suggested that Matthias de Ligt could leave the club this summer. I think everybody has known that. I think de Ligt has said that himself. United do not want to allow Scott McTominay to leave the club. Okay, well, that's contradictory, but never mind. Paris Saint-Germain are set to advance their pursuit of Victor Osimhen. As well as Osimhen, PSG also want to sign Kvicha Kvaratskhelia, Desiree Doué, and João Neves. So, yeah, having wasted all that money on Mbappe and Neymar and won nearly a Champions League, they're now prepared to spend loads more money on players that don't actually fix the problems that they have. So there we go, folks. I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.